Great.
Why don't we, just to get Kumar and Swati involved in talking some of these themes, why don't I just pose one question?
Sure.
Yeah, Democrats often have trouble communicating their values. And one thing I think in past elections that we've had trouble is explaining why we're Democrats. And so I just wanted to hear, and Hansen touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to just hear why you became Democrats and what the values sort of that you were brought up with, how that led you to the Democratic Party.
I mean, for me, it's very simple. I'm in office because of the philosophy of the Democratic Party. When I grew up in the early 1960s, it would have been impossible to imagine an Indian American. Well, it would be impossible to imagine an Indian American getting elected any place, but even in liberal Montgomery County, it would have been very unusual. The Democratic Party represents a philosophy that basically says we're going to take people as they are, we're going to give people an opportunity because we're not going to be satisfied with the notion of just a free market taking care of people. We're going to try to see to it that people are educated, that people have a decent opportunity. We understand that people who are wealthy are going to be able to do well for themselves, but we're a party that feels strongly that somebody's got to be the lobbyist for the average guy. I mean, literally every interest in America, and I don't mean this as a criticism of business or labor or pro-life or pro-choice, all of those organizations are able to band together and hire lobbyists. Who the hell is going to be the lobbyist for the average person? That's why I'm a Democrat. Somebody's got to be a lobbyist for people like me growing up on East-West Highway in Silver Spring, Maryland.
For me, I was asked that question when I ran from District 36 because it's a Republican district. And they said, you have all the values. And I said, yeah, and that's why I'm a Democrat. I have family values. I care for public education because this way you are not choosing winners and losers. Private schools, if you go to private schools, and my boys went to college, that's a private school. But K through 12, they went to public education. And the reason, that's why I told them I'm a Democrat. And the question you asked, it was very interesting. When I knocked on doors, I told Kumar this story. There's this gentleman, he must be as old as my mom, and there are only 2 questions he asks. And he asks me if I'm married to the same guy, and I tell him, yeah, he's still there. I'm still married to him, and I love him. And he said, that's what I want to hear. He said, and I love you for your values because you fight for education. And he is a values voter, and he is Republican. And I know he votes for me because he always calls me after he goes to polls, and when he comes back home, he'll say, Dandekar, I voted for you. And he always does that. So I really think that Democratic Party is a value-oriented party, but we need to talk about it. We need to say we are there for people, for their public education, and that's my passion, so that's what I talk about. And healthcare.
Well, after I dominated all that time, I'm going to keep my answers to like 3 sentences, basically. Okay, I'm a Democrat, number one, because my dad was a Democrat. When he came to this country, Roosevelt was in office. It was right after the Depression. And I believe in the principles that government should be conservative with your tax dollars, not blowing it, in a futile attempt in world peace like what we're doing in Iraq, blowing $500 billion that way, but also being progressive, that we can also use our tax dollars to help make conditions better for people.